Okay, here we are again. I'm the organic mechanic, and this is the undisputed hydroweight champion of the world, Harley Smith.
Hydroid. Oh, okay. Now I
Once
get
again,
it.
great to have you with us. Yeah, the defending, the reigning champion, Harley Smith.
Well,
So we're off
thank
to a
you,
new
Brandon.
year in this podcast, and looking forward to neat things and good things. Going to be a great year for everybody.
Hmm.
Right around the corner, and we've been talking the past couple episodes a lot about microbes, and
Hmm.
we talked about sterile growing environments, and if there is microbes in it, how is that still sterile? And there's good microbes and bad microbes, and the question seems to be is how do we know if we have the good ones in there? And that stirred up quite a bit of questions like that, and so I thought maybe today we could just dive into that a little bit deeper, how to know, how to make sure, and some things we do to make sure we got good ones and not bad ones. And so with that being said, I'll just turn it right over to you and see what you can come up with right off the bat.
Okay. Yeah, literally in the root zone, there are thousands of different species of, strains of microorganisms. And some of them are good, some of them are bad. Some of them compete with each other. Some of them actually work together. They're synergistic with each other. And what we want to do as growers is to provide an environment and a balance where the good guys win and the bad guys are fought off. Um, the real, I'm going to get really, really simple with it. The anaerobic fungi are the bad guys in general. This is in general. And the aerobic are the good guys. That's the first line of deciding which is which. So as growers, the best thing we can do is provide organic matter. If it's in soil, maybe whatever. I don't know. What's your recommendation for percentage of organic matter in soil?
Absolutely. Some of the good container growers or potted growers are 20, 30% organic matter. In the farm field, it's very hard to get up to that. Like in the farms, we see less than 3% in actual soil. So what I've seen, if we can get that organic matter up above 30%, that just creates such an enormous environment for microbes. And then that still leaves some room for other substrates and drainage and oxygen to get in and out? That is a good question, but if we can get it, 30%, and that number seemed to work really good for what I've experienced.
Yeah, I've actually seen some people in the Netherlands that will literally grow plants in compost.
Wow.
I mean, come on, really? Yeah, they've
Mm.
done it. I would think, oh, that's too much. It's going to be too much cation exchange. Maybe it's going to be a little too harsh. But I've seen it happen as long as it's good quality and you get good drainage. So what I was going to say is, yeah, organic matter. I usually shoot for in soil, recommend around 7%. This is
Hmm.
just a good target in general. But there's a lot of room for more,
Hmm.
especially if you want to make it super microbe friendly. But what I was going to say though is oxygen, of course,
Oxygen. Yep.
good drainage. If it's sitting in a puddle, you are asking for trouble. If the soil is too wet, and I think we've mentioned this before, for the plants themselves, but also for the microbes. If overwatering is one of the biggest mistakes that beginning growers make in soil if they don't have good drainage. The best recommendation for me to give the good guys an advantage is to do a thorough watering when you water, but make sure that at least 20% of the water they put in comes out the bottom and that it's light and fluffy and there's lots of room for oxygen. And then wait till it's almost dried out before you do another thorough watering. And that seems to be an excellent just rule of thumb to give the aerobic microorganisms a competitive advantage.
Good point. Good point. So if we look at that theory and move it over to hydro, um, so what's kind of your ideas or theories or basis in hydro to make sure you got the good microbes?
Yeah. Well, in hydro, again, the microbes aren't as important because it's mainly because the nutrients are typically not the large organic molecules, are actually ionic form, the salts. But microbes are still there and they're still important. And again, oxygenation is number one. If you have stagnant water, you're just sitting in stagnant water, you're just asking for pythium, the root rots, and then the root hairs die back, and the plant suffers. But in hydroponics, Brandon, it's a little bit different too, because there's less exudates. The plants will make
Hmm.
the carbohydrates, and then
Right.
they'll feed the microbes in the root zone. They'll exude those carbohydrates in different forms, and amino acids. But in hydro, there's much less exudates because the plant doesn't need the microbes to mineralize and make minerals available. They're already available. So, but there still is. There's still some exudates. So that's why in hydro, I recommend if you're going to use microbes, inoculate early on with the good guys, and then just as the roots grow, let the microbes grow with them, because the only thing they're going to feed on is the only carbon source is coming from the plants,
Right.
not from
Right. Right.
outside. Yeah.
Right. We
So,
suggest we suggest to a lot of our customers to inoculate with our Myco plus inoculant product at Kelp4Less or our Route 66 product at Kelp4Less. And it goes exactly along with what you're saying. You get a little bit too much organic matter or too much carbon in a hydroponic environment, and that changes a lot of the ecosystem in the system. So we like to tell people in hydro, avoid a lot of molasses, avoid a lot of compost teas or whatever. If you're doing a true hydroponic system, and if you are using those, make sure you inoculate with them. Is our advice, because
hmm,
there's a lot of growers that have really dialed in using some organic substrates in hydro, and
mhm.
it can be a very big balancing act in that. And so for the guys that have figured that out, that's phenomenal that they do that. They have some good gardens and produce some good crops, but a lot different than soil. So we always tell people just make sure you inoculate if you're going to use some of those organic substrates.
Yeah, yeah. And there's so the other part here too is if you get a really good inoculation with the good guys, they literally will fight the bad guys. Bacillus subtilis and some others. I mean, actinomycetes. Especially actinomycetes. Um, they will make compounds that are antifungal and antibacterial. You get into some of the trichodermis, they literally will parasitize. They'll go after the bad fungi and eat it. They'll make what's called a chitinase, which breaks down the chitin in the cell wall of the fungus, and then it becomes even more effective at fighting them off. And there was questions. I had the same question to a microbiologist that many of your growers and viewers do. They said, "Well, what about the mycorrhizal fungi? Won't it kill the mycorrhizal fungi? That's good fungus." And how would they distinguish between the two? And the microbiologist said they have done lots of different research, and they find that the good microbes are very discriminating. They'll go after the bad ones, and they'll leave the mycorrhizal fungi alone. And I don't know how they do that, but maybe it's just the way they've evolved in a good living, healthy soil that they've just learned. I don't say learned, but they've been able to identify and fight off the bad guys that would compete for them. I'll say this one thing: the good microorganisms, the reason that they're protecting the plant is because they're protecting their food source. The plants take in the CO2 and make the sugars, and then they feed the microorganisms, lots of different exudates, and that's where a lot of the secrets of biostimulants come in, by the way, just looking what the plants are doing to stimulate microbes. Um, so they just are able to distinguish between the two.
Yeah, and I refer to
Just
the
one of those.
biodiversity of all of that. It's a biodiverse everybody has to live, and I'm coming from the soil. So in the soil, everybody has to live. There's anaerobes in there. There's fungi we don't like. There's nematodes. There's all these things in the soil that it seems like in the agriculture world, we're only testing for the bad guys. And then they'll do a biological soil test. They'll see some bad guys and think, oh, okay, all right, we need to eradicate them, or we need to fumigate our soil because we got some bad guys in there. And I've been always on the forefront saying, whoa, 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 they're always going to be in there. We're not going to get rid of them. It's part of the ecosystem. Let's build the good guys up because they can live in harmony with each other. So just because we see some bad guys in a test or evidence of, let's not just focus on that. Let's focus on building up the team so they can all live in harmony together. That's kind of how I approach it in the soil. And a hydro, it's a little bit different, but yeah, soil wise, they all work with each other in some way in nature and in the biological activity. That they're all supposed to be there. So we let one species get out of control. We make an environment that creates the bad guys to, propagate more, such as low oxygen or low drainage or an anaerobic environment. So we see that a lot in agriculture. So that's a very good point. Very good point.
Yeah, yeah. There's that symbiosis in nature, and they've done it without our help. Plants they're out there when we're not helping them fight off the bad guys. They're able to do it because, again, you're right, balance. Everything's in balance, but you want to give a competitive advantage. Now, you probably know this too, and the microbes for inoculants, when those are developed, those microorganisms are chosen. They're chosen for superior characteristics, and then they're combined in a way where they feed each other and help each other. So some of
Right.
them are going to take nitrogen out of the air, convert it into fertilizer or ammonium, and that's going to be a nitrogen source for the ones that unlock phosphorus. And the ones that unlock phosphorus are going to provide phosphorus for energy for the ones that make antibacterial characteristics. So the idea is not to have more and more and more microbes, but to have a group of those that have a competitive advantage. It's called competency. And most of the ones that you make in the lab, they're chosen to be able to outcompete the ones that are in nature. Not that you're going to replace them, but that they're going to be there and they're going to provide the most plant protection possible to protect their food source. Uh, I do say this too, every cell in every living creature, from human beings to microbes, and the genetic code says the same thing: be fruitful and multiply. Create this environment. It's a good environment. Take over the environment. So the idea is, if the microbes are stimulating root growth and protecting the plant, they're going to get more lateral root growth. There's going to be more surface area for the good microorganisms to colonize. That's what they want to do. And if they fully colonize that environment, there's no room for the bad guys. You don't have to worry about, oh, they're out there, they're there. But when they come there, the iron's already sequestered. The surface area is already sequestered. So the bad guys can't get a foothold and then spread.
That's
So,
right.
yeah.
That's right. That's right. I may take a lot of scrutiny for saying this, but when I was younger, the old timer would always tell me we work the soil too much in agriculture. We till too deep. We till too often. We plow. And he explained it to me. We're taking an environment of microbes, and when we till, we're turning it upside down. So we took a lot of the anaerobes, put them on the top. We took the aerobic and buried them. And we wonder why they're getting out of control. And so, he was one of the first forefront people in my life to say, do you know what? This excess tillage is really hurting the ecosystem of the soil. And when we would do those biological tests and it shows the numbers really high on the bad guys, he was the first to teach me that give the bad guys something to eat. there's not enough organic matter for everybody to go around and not enough carbon. Let's feed the bad guys too. Leave the plants alone. So really, a really unique way, a unique approach, and a different way of thinking way before his time. So I'm very thankful he would teach me that.
Yeah, that I never thought of that, but that's a good point. It's
Yeah.
remember too that with the mycorrhizal fungi, and well, we've known about that for years, how beneficial those are, right?
Hmm.
But it takes time for the mycorrhizal fungi to develop a mycelial mat. And if you're chopping that up the next year, I mean, all you're doing is breaking up what they've already trying to establish, that nice
Right.
sponge of mycorrhizae there. Um,
Right.
so it's counterproductive. That's why in hydroponics, one of the reasons I rarely recommend the mycorrhizae, because for one thing, the plant's going to treat them as a pathogen. They're going to repel the mycorrhizae because there's plenty of phosphorus. And for the other thing, it doesn't have time to get established in one season, in a few months. It takes time. But you're right. If you can have, you don't over-till the soil, you're not disturbing the balance that's already there, and it's going to work better the second year than with the first.
Exactly, exactly. And we've consulted with a lot of container or above ground soil gardeners where we've advised them to not till the soil when they harvest and cut and plant a cover crop and let something else grow and turn that back in. Keep your soil because a lot of these container gardeners they'll dump their soil and start over with fresh. And we've had some really really good results by continue to use the soil that we've established because of that biological environment that we've created. And of course, I'm talking about large masses of soil. I'm not talking about a 5 gallon container or anything like that. I'm talking about big raised container gardens, and it has totally changed their whole system uh, around. That some of the best soil, some of the stories we get of what people have done to their soil and how good it works and how fast it responds and the life they can see in their soil, like earthworms and things like that. And it's phenomenal what you can do if you don't disturb that biological system.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in general, the people, because they don't have the understanding or the education, they're afraid of microbes.
Yes.
All they think of is disease. I think that someday in the future, scientists and doctors are going to look back at our age. We're the age of antibiotics, right? And think of all the good it's done, but then we've overdo it because we need balance as human beings. Every animal does. I mean, there's more microbial cells in the human body than there are human cells, not by mass, but by number. And some of those microbes in us literally make essential vitamins that we can't make ourselves, that help protect us, that help stimulate our immune system, that keep us healthy. And we want to live in such a sterile environment. Every time we get a little sniffle, oh, let's take some heavy duty antibiotics. And we're
Right.
killing the good guys and the bad guys.
Right.
And I think someday the scientists are going to go look back and think, look how ignorant they were back then. What were they thinking? You know, just like we look back at some of the things with bleeding and stuff that they used to do in ancient days. And think, what were they thinking? They're just weakening the. They're going to do the same. They'll look at that too. Antibiotics are great, but when you overuse them, it's a problem. And what I would say for the future is going to be the same thing we're doing with plants. It's going to be probiotics. It's going to be adding the ones that could contribute to health and making sure that those microbes are stimulated in our digestive systems so they're able to produce even more of the beneficial molecules that human beings need. So yeah, it's true for us as animals.
Right.
It's also true for plants.
Right. And the big agriculture world too is starting to pivot. There is a trend and there is a pivot that's really coming around, and they're really starting to identify and recognize and support the biological system in the soil, which really has not been a focus for them, but it is coming around. So it's good to see. So there's a lot of good things happening out there. Have you seen that documentary, Kiss the Ground?
Mm,
Oh, it's a great documentary about soil, and it's
mm,
how soil is the future,
mm.
and it is very well done. There's a lot of good points in that, and it brought up what you touched on is our bodies being so microbial as well. It really relates our bodies to the soil, and it's a very well done documentary, and you should take the time if you have a minute and watch that. It's called Kiss the Ground. Very good
Yeah.
documentary.
Okay, I'll look it up later on. I'll watch it over the holidays here. Give me something to look to do.
Right.
Yeah, that's this idea that we have to fumigate and just kill everything if we're going to make it, and then it doesn't work. I mean, you could say, oh well, it's the only thing that works. Well, it doesn't. Over time, it doesn't work because the plants become more and more susceptible because the good guys aren't there as much. So then you end up having to spray more in the end because it just doesn't work. I agree with you. We're on this 100% in the same philosophy. We need to protect the soil and grow and produce healthier soil that will yield more and more from generation to generation. We don't want to deplete the soil, and we don't want to let it become unhealthy because that's if you start using the same potting soil over and over again, but it gets out of balance, it could be
Right.
you could start building up more and more of the pythium and other pathogens over time. But you don't have to be afraid if you have good balance to begin with.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. If you target the bad guys and want to destroy and kill the bad guys, just like you said, you do that to the good guys as well. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's well said. A very good topic. We could probably, like any topic we bring up, we could talk about this forever.
yeah, we could
But
get back into. I have a whole hour class just on plant growth promoting rhizobacteria and what they do and how they work together and which ones complement each other, which ones compete with each other, those kinds of things. So that's an hour right there just on the mainly on the bacteria. So yeah, we could go as far as you want, talk about
I,
the different strains. But for now though, I think the idea is that the environment is probably the most important, that you have if you're especially growing in soil, that you do have some organic matter to work with, that you use biostimulants that will stimulate the metabolism of the microorganisms in the root growth so they can actively divide more quickly because as they're actively growing, being fruitful and multiplying, that's when they produce the antibiotics. It's as they're dividing. So and then protect the plants at the same time. So yeah, so feed the microbes, provide plenty of oxygen, and the and let nature take its course. I think.
that's right. That's right. Another topic I want to just bring up here really quick is I've addressed this before that I get a lot of agricultural and growing feeds on my news feed, and there's some new technology coming out with electronic stimulation of soil, how it's affecting the plant. And it's really not soil; it's in a cellulose substrate, and it's some type of electrical charge that they put into that, and the plants are responding very well to it. That's something I'd like to look into more. Have you ever heard of that?
Um, Not exactly. It's kind of funny though. When I was in eighth grade in science, we had to design an experiment, and I wanted to see how an electrical field, just a magnetic electrical field, might affect plant growth. That was my experiment in eighth grade.
Oh,
So I set up the probes and tried to do it. Actually, it didn't really work, you know, but I still went through the process. Um, because I was interested to see how that might affect the plants if I created an electrical field or electrical charge. My problem was my seeds didn't even germinate probably because I didn't know what the heck I was doing, in eighth
Well,
grade.
I'll forward this to you, and I believe, of course, it's from the Netherlands, I believe, but I'll forward this to you. That very
Okay.
interesting, some neat data there.
I'm not, I hear a lot of stuff that's out there, kind of, and I kind of wonder how, frequencies, electric, the magnetic field. But then again, as a scientist, I'm going, wait a minute, I can't rule those things out just because
Hmm.
we don't have evidence now to support it much. Because we know, the more I learn about the the effects of the electricity, it's all just focusing electricity, either like being created by the sun or being created by respiration. There's the electron transport chain with the different metals. There's metals in the soil. There's magnetic field. How to how are we to say that there's things going on there that are indirect, having a
Yeah, that's
positive
true.
effect?
That's
We
true.
can't.
Look at the
I'm
effects
not going to
that
rule that out.
magnets have. Look at the effects that magnets have on a lot of metals and a lot of
Yeah,
things. And just, yeah, we don't know. Just because we can't see it doesn't mean it's not there.
yeah. And we talk about music too. We've heard
Yeah.
about that for your singing to the plant. Well, is there an effect if there's birds in a healthy environment and you have birds singing and they're eating insects and they're good? Would the plant be able to respond to that in some way, some way that we can't really measure or understand yet?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not going to
The
rule it out
future is very
completely,
good.
but,
Yeah.
yeah,
A lot of
but
things
as
to
a,
learn.
yeah, so nature does have the answers. There's still a lot more for us to discover just from the world that we live in. Um, and as a scientist too, and helping growers, I focus on the things that are proven. What is the best parts per million of phosphorus? Okay, do the trials. This is what's good. But is that everything? No, it's just one part of a larger equation that the plants are part of, that the microbes are part of, that the worms are part of, and that human beings are part of. Let's just find our part in nature, be able to work with nature in an intelligent way.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it, the soil philosopher right there. That was well said. That's a good clip.
Yeah, keep that one in.
Yeah, that's a
Send that
good
one to
clip.
me. I'll try to remember that later on. How did I say that? Oh, just kidding.
That was great. That was great. Yeah, write that stuff down. Uh, well, another good time chatting with you. The happiest of New Year. Best wishes, and
Mhm.
looking forward. I sure would like to get you out here this summer, so we'll keep talking about that.
Okay, I'm all for it. I'd love to visit. We could have, we could do hey, wouldn't that be fun doing one of our podcasts live together, sitting side by side? That would be nice.
I wish we could. Yeah, I wish we could. That would be great. Yeah, we'll do that.
Mhm.
We'll make that happen.
Okay, well, I think we're out of time, so let's wrap it up. Happy New Year. Looking forward to the next part of this journey, sharing
You've
it
got
with
it.
you.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, Harley.
Okay, bye.
Best wishes. Bye bye.